Hi there, thanks for joining us on Let's Talk Taste with Sherry, where we're saving the earth one flavor at a time by gathering community to share wisdom around the natural connections between our innate sense of taste and flavors that are grown in healthy regenerative soils. Welcome. Hi, Sherry Hess with the Flavor Remedy. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Let's Talk Taste with Sherry, saving the earth one flavor at a time. How are we going to save the earth with flavor for Thanksgiving? Well, we might not be saving the earth with flavor for Thanksgiving because flavor is certainly in the forefront of our mind at Thanksgiving. And saving the earth, well, maybe we take a day off. But not really, because if you choose the right ingredients, you're still making a difference. So let's talk about how to find the 5 flavors in your Thanksgiving meal. I love this. I love this idea. So what do we start with? Let's start with the obvious. Let's start with sweet. So sweet. There's very blatant opportunities to experience sweet. And we all know this, right? Maybe your favorite is the pumpkin pie. Maybe your favorite is like we're going to do a pumpkin cheesecake brownie. These are sweet, right? We know that the desserts are going to be sweet. But what about the nuances of sweet that you can pick up on in the actual meal itself? You know, one of my favorite parts of Thanksgiving dinner is actually the cranberry. Not the stuff that you open a can and put it out there in a dish looking like the shape of the can. That's not what we do in my family. But cranberry itself, has anybody ever tasted a raw cranberry? Cranberry is sour. It is straight up one of the most sour things that you can experience. So what do we do when we make the relish, right? We make like a jelly out of it. We add sweetener to it. We cook it down. We make a chutney. So what I like to do is mix it with apples. Apples are a very appropriate fall spice, right? So cooking it down and reducing it with things that have sweetness to them takes away from that offensive sour level. So sour and sweet combined together in a nice cranberry chutney. Maybe you're putting a little raisins in it. Maybe you're putting, my mom likes to make the Jell-O. So sometimes it's got the Jell-O, which is obvious sugar sweet, but you know, we're just talking about looking for the flavors here, seeking these flavors. So even in that chutney itself, you could actually, I'm trying to think. Yes. So my mom makes a cranberry relish that has cranberries, obviously, sweetener, which would be either the apples or the fruit. She also sometimes puts little bits of walnut in it. So then you get your umami. That walnut is going to give you that little burst of protein. Orange rind. Orange rind is also part of it. So guess what flavor that is? Orange rind would be your bitter. So now we got sweet, we got sour, we got bitter, we got umami. What are we missing? Sweet, salty. Salty. Well, I bet you, even if you looked for it, you could find an element of salty in it because sometimes she also puts in celery. Now you guys are like, what is this crazy concoction that your mom makes for Thanksgiving? But I'm just now realizing that all 5 flavors are in that one dish. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other classic dishes. Sweet potatoes. Obviously, you have the sweet, but what are you seasoning that sweet with? If you're throwing marshmallows on top of it, you're not going to taste anything but sweet. And here we are. It's Thanksgiving. That's okay. Just be very aware, right? Be aware of when you're taking that bite of all that sweetness. How's your body feeling? How's your body going? Like, I want more, or like, oh my God, this is way too sweet. Just start paying attention to these things, right? Okay, side dishes, green bean casserole, Brussels sprouts, corn. All of these things have different elements of all these flavors. Brussels sprouts, straight up Brussels, are going to have that bitterness to it, right? But you can also even pick up a little bit of that umami. There is a little bit of protein in Brussels. And then what are you seasoning it with? Right? So the seasonings play a big part of creating these complex layers of flavor. So if you're making Brussels sprouts and you're seasoning with a little olive oil, salt and pepper, maybe an herb, maybe some rosemary, or something that complements it, that all plays into the layering of flavors. Now, I've made Brussels sprouts before and put cranberries in it. So then the dried cranberries that are sweetened dried cranberries are bringing in this element of balance to that bitterness that you might experience with Brussels, right? Let's see, what are some other classics? Mashed potatoes. So potatoes are an interesting thing because potatoes that we get in grocery stores are, everything that we're getting anymore has been a little bit manipulated to be, I think, a little heavier on the starchier, sweeter side. But this is an interesting thing to play with too, is if you're having a potato dish, we don't think of potatoes as being necessarily sweet. But again, if you're paying attention and breaking down what you're eating into these specific categories, potatoes actually are sweet. And I'm not talking about sweet potatoes. They're clearly sweet. I'm talking about russets or golden potatoes. Yes, we're adding butter and salt and, these layers of this flavor of fat that we don't really talk about. The flavor it's probably more of a mouth experience than it is an actual flavor, but all of those things are contributing to the complexity of flavor. But the potatoes themselves, if you could taste them before you added the salt, and I know that's very, potatoes require a lot of salt. When you're making mashed potatoes, like to make them taste really good and yummy, we typically add a good bit of salt to them. But the potato itself has a level of sweetness to it. It also has that kind of umami-ish flavor. Just start looking for all of these flavors in each thing that you're biting. And then of course there's turkey. Straight up turkey. Turkey has its own flavor. Some people love it, some people hate it. I really only eat turkey once a year. I like turkey sandwiches throughout the year, but there's something about the Thanksgiving turkey that just lands on the plate at Thanksgiving. So protein, obviously, you're going to get lots of umami. How you flavor a turkey is really what is going to make a turkey stand out. So you can flavor it. I typically brine my turkeys a day in advance, which not only gives it more moisture when you cook it, it also brings in elements of sweet and salty. So brines are classically made with salt and sugar and on almost equal parts of each. But then you're adding the nuances of flavor to that brine. You're adding rosemary, thyme, bay leaves. Sometimes I put apple, cinnamon in there. So all of these things are coming together into this solution that is being absorbed into the meat, which creates more complexity in the turkey itself. So it really depends. Those flavors that you can pick up in the turkey are going to depend mostly on the seasonings that you're adding to it. And then we're going to smoke a turkey, which is a whole different level of flavor. But, then you can put rubs on the outside that can play with that umami of the turkey, that can, either enhance the complexity. It's the complexity of these layers of flavor that are going to make your Thanksgiving meal stand out. And it really depends upon who's doing the cooking. Sorry to say that, Thanksgiving can be a beautiful, complex layer of colors and flavors and nuances, or it could be straight up flat sweet, flat umami, flat bitter. And when you understand these flavors and how they play together, Thanksgiving can be this beautiful, beautiful layering of complexity. And as long as you're using all real ingredients where the flavor matches the nutrients, you're not going to have nutrient mismatch. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I hope you enjoy your time with family and friends, and that you're safe and healthy and happy, and mostly have a delicious Thanksgiving.